Could I have everybody take their seats? We'll get this thing started on time, hopefully. Could everyone please take their seats? I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Destin City Council, November 19th, 2018, to order. We'll start this evening with an invocation from Reverend Logan Landis. I said it right. Good job. Grace Lutheran Church. Thank you, sir.
Dear Heavenly Lord, you are the governor of all things. To you belong all power and glory. Bless tonight this meeting. Guide the men and women who have been chosen to help lead and govern this community. Pour out your blessings and mercy upon Destin and the agenda here tonight. Bless all people who reside here in this good city. Guard and protect the city and those who serve it. Especially direct this meeting tonight that it may be in accord with your good and gracious will and a benefit to this community as a whole. Thank you for those willing to serve. Please bless and keep them each and every day. All this we pray in your name, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, one God. Amen.
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. First is we have agenda approval, and I believe we have an item or two that we may want to pull.
Yes, there are a couple items, item 5C and 5D, relating to the acquisition of the Sandalwood property that we are requesting that you guys pull at this time. We're concerned about whether there's a owners association that may govern those documents that we haven't had a chance to look at yet.
So moved. Second.
We got a motion. We have a second. Let's go ahead and vote on that. Unanimous. So moved.
Kim, did you
have an item?
Yes. 5B, SRG Properties, the major deviation to Restaurant Row. We want to pull that one and move it, continue it to December 3rd at the applicant's request.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion. I got a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Votes unanimous, so moved.
One more, Mayor. The Harbor and Waterways Ordinance, I drafted some changes to it, but staff and we had a crossing of signals, and so effectively you do not have a new version in front of you tonight, so can we also move that to the next meeting?
At 4D?
Yes, under City Manager's report, discussion of Harbor and Waterway Ordinance.
So
17.
moved.
Okay, we have a motion,
Second.
and I have a second. Any discussion on that? Seeing none?
There's one item here that looks like it might go with the item 5B, and I'm sort of open, but land use attorney, what are your thoughts? Should we move that as well, or should we discuss it?
Are you talking about I-2? The Sterling?
Let's go ahead and finish this vote, and then we'll
Yeah.
jump on that, okay?
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. Tuffy? All right, unanimous, so moved. Go ahead, Ms. Ramswell.
That was just going to be an FYI as to the status. I wasn't going to ask for action, so if you want to have me give you status on the 3rd, that's fine, or I can do it tonight.
We'll go ahead and keep it on for discussion
Okay,
purposes.
thanks.
Mayor, I have one more item. 5E, marine construction at Captain Leonard Destin Park.
5E.
Yeah. Is the applicant for that project here today? Okay, good. We just wanted to make sure you guys were here so that we could proceed with that QJ, so.
Okay, so that one remains. Sure? I mean, we got more we can take off if you like. No, seeing none, okay, so I guess we're going to have to press on then.
I'll make a motion to accept the agenda.
I have a motion.
Second.
Got a second? Seeing no further discussion? Votes unanimous, so moved. Okay, item 1A, approval of minutes of October 25th, 2018 City Council Workshop.
Motion to approve?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none? Vote is unanimous. Motion so moved. Item 1B, approval of minutes of August 6, 2018 regular city council meeting.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. No further discussion. Votes unanimous, so moved. We'll move right on to item 2, proclamations, recognitions, special presentations. We do have a special presentation tonight that I think we're all looking. So who's going to start? Ms. Ramswell, you going to take the floor?
Okay, I'd like to have the executive board, there's multiple members of the boards that are here for the high school committee, so if you guys could all come up and just sort of, I don't want to do this from up here, I'll come down there. There we go. Ooh. Okay, so 2 years ago, back in June of 2016, this council actually approved and endorsed and authorized a committee to be formed to pull together a letter/packet to present to the Okaloosa County School Board saying, we want a Destin High School, and here is why and how. And so this is the result of our search and 2 years of research, networking, digging into the trenches for all sorts of information to pull all of this together. And we are so excited to reach this point and share where we are with you all tonight. I don't know if y'all want to go around. I'd like for y'all to introduce yourselves, if you don't mind.
I'm Destin resident Heidi Locicero.
Myra Williams, live here in Destin as well.
Hi, I'm Denise Fountain. I live here in Destin.
Sarah Stone, I'm also a Destin resident.
Mitchell Silver, also a Destin resident.
George Alonso, also a Destin resident.
Thank you. So to start off with, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of the background of what we've done over the past couple years to get us to where we are today. So as I already mentioned, 2 years ago, this council authorized us to get together and put forth a letter saying that this is something that the community wanted and needed. And so we did so, and we began with 9 members, and a couple have moved out, a couple have moved in. We continued along the journey with great success to reach where we are today. Our first meeting was held back in July of 16, and it has been nonstop ever since. We've continued to meet monthly, sometimes more than monthly, and sometimes by phone to try to get things done in between, because as you might imagine, it's not a real simple feat to try to put together a school and then gather all of the necessary information and resources to actually make it happen. So we have been very successful in putting our data together. This summer, we actually had reached a point where it was time to move to the next step. We knew we had done just about all the research we could do. We needed to actually get the school. How do we get the school now that we know what we need and how we need to do it? So we began looking out and reaching out. Lots of folks on this committee had different resources, different people to network with, and we discovered School Financial Services. We met with them about how to start raising funds, what funds would be necessary, et cetera. And they recommended that we reach out to Collaborative Education Network, CEN, because they are pretty much the go-to people in this field. They're worked and pretty much established multiple charters throughout the state of Florida. They've also worked in the government aspect of approving charters throughout the state of Florida and beyond. So really, we were put in touch with this just unbelievable asset of a consultant. So then it became, does she like us? Does the company like us? Can they take us? Do we have what it takes to actually get to that next step where they're willing to take us on and do an application for us? Because and success rate, which is absolutely unheard of in this business. People know their names, and people know when they see an application from this group that it is put together well, it's not shoddy, it has everything it needs, and it's going to be successful. So we were thrilled when they took us on. So that was our huge step that we were able to take this summer. So now that we get them on board, our next step was, all right, well, now what do you want us to do? Well, they put together this terrific timeline, and we were all a little bit shocked and amazed and thrilled at the same time when we saw that they actually had enough information to go ahead and, even though it was late in the process, to go ahead and submit an application in February of 2018. So very quick. And then, hopefully, and it's not even really a hopefully, it's a, we've got all our ducks in a row, let's submit it. Upon approval, we would then look at opening the high school in August of 2020. So, yeah, I mean, it's woohoo, it's almost like take a breath. We've come so far, yes. And that's literally kudos to this group up here and a few others that have moved on. But absolutely, it couldn't have been done without this whole team effort. So we are now officially official, if you will. We hired an attorney that did all of our paperwork and got us our official incorporation. So we are Destin High School, Inc. We have an email address and a phone number. We have a website, but it's not up yet because we want to make sure before we do a website that it's exactly what we want. We don't want to release something that's not yet public ready, if you will. We want to make sure it's absolutely perfect. So this is the vision that we came up with collaboratively and also with CEN. I won't read it because I know you all know how to read. And this is our mission. One of our goals really was not just to have a high school, which is a huge goal in itself, but we want to be different. We don't want to be just like any other school. We feel that there are some gaps that we need to fill in the education system here. So we wanted to offer some tracks, some different courses that would allow students an opportunity to pursue different paths. And one of those paths is typically what we all probably think of as vocational, but it's really those students that perhaps they don't want to go to college. They already have a career path in mind that doesn't require a four-year bachelor's degree. So we wanted to reach those students and provide courses and training that would actually better suit them and better prepare them and make them marketable when they leave high school and go out. One of the things we're looking at is hotel restaurant management. We're looking at HVAC. And to add that, now if we go the opposite track and not necessarily just the VOTech track, if you will, we're looking at different types of curriculum that are really up-and-coming fields and very popular fields. And we also took into consideration what is around this area. We're surrounded by military bases. We're surrounded by water.
So we wanted to make sure that we embraced those and looked at fields that would be a good mesh with that. So we're looking at cybersecurity, and then we're also looking at a marine science, environmental science. So those are just some of the ideas that we have and that we want to move forward with, because we think those are some real opportunities, not just for students, but also for this community as a whole. So as I just mentioned, these are some of our curriculum goals, and this is not exhaustive and it's not finalized. We're still going to sort of, bring that down a little bit. We've got, several folks that have reached out and worked in curriculum elsewhere or somewhere in their lives, and they want to help us as well. And of course, we want the community input, community feedback, because you guys live and work here. You guys know better than anyone what it is we need and what we need our students to be armed with when they graduate high school. And y'all please feel free to jump in. I don't want to like overpower everything, please. So, as I mentioned, Student Financial Services is the group that handles budgets, financing, the accounting aspect, and they are providing consulting to us for free right now. It's just unbelievable. Of course, they want to be considered when the school is up and running to handle it professionally for the school. So that's why, they like to reach out and network, and places they think are going to be successful, they want to make those connections because there's a real opportunity for us to potentially hire them in the future. But they are absolutely terrific. And weren't they Seaside School?
They've been instrumental in a number of charter areas throughout the state, but they've been Seaside's accounting firm for many years now, and so that's how we connected with them. And in addition to all the curriculum that you just talked about, obviously we'll have the state mandated curriculum that, all high schoolers would have.
Good point. Yeah, a lot of people were worried that, that's all you're going to have. No. We're going to be a straightforward high school offering the typical high school curriculum plus, the additional things that we felt like were necessary here and that people had asked for. The other group, the one that is our charter writer, is known as Collaborative Educational Network. They're headed by Dr. Christine No. Her resume is absolutely incredible. I encourage all of you to look them up online because we just grow more and more impressed with them on a day-to-day basis. We are so honored that they took us on and literally felt that instead of the full year that they typically take to write an application and get everything completed and done, they took us on in the end of August, September. So we missed a good 4 or 5 months of what they typically need to research and gather data. They're that sure of what we have all put together and put forward. It's so exciting. This is our executive board. I think most of us, all of us are here tonight except Mr. Lufau. Partners. All right, Sarah, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about this since you've been, you and Heidi actually have been doing this. Which one of y'all would like to take a stab at it?
Sarah and I are really excited about what's been happening in our community. The buzz is contagious, the excitement is building, the momentum is there because the time is really now. Our students need a high school, and that takes many of you in the audience. It certainly takes these wonderful folks behind us, and it takes our community partners to be part of this. And we've already received an outpouring of financial donations, of time and talent donations, and companies who will match their employees' donations to make this a reality. Many times people ask us when they come to volunteer, but why do we have to do all of this? I mean, won't someone else do this, or won't the community or the state or the feds come into a school for us? Well, they might one day, but I personally probably won't be alive to see that. So instead, we've got all these volunteers who believe in the mission of our city and the future of our students, and that's why we're putting committees together that you guys can come in and be a part of. And some people have said, well, I don't have anything to offer. Oh, but you do. We will find the perfect place for you to help us make this happen. We need donations. We need fundraisers. We've had some people step forward and offer their homes or their company venues to do fundraisers. We need committee members, kind of the worker bees, and we need you to spread the word. Share our story on social media. Talk about it. We keep hearing that we've become the buzz in the carpool line and on the golf courses in Destin and around town, which we love. The churches are talking about us, and that's what we need. We need that buzz so that people understand this is a school for everyone in Destin. I know I was volunteering at one of the schools here after the hurricane, and it broke my heart to see parents from Panama City standing in line at our local schools, getting this one registered for elementary school and this one for middle, and then they say, well, where do they go to high school? And we're like, well, keep driving 20 miles or 35 miles, and that's where they'll be. And it's hard for parents who are trying to rebuild their homes in another community than to drive even further after an exhaustive day of rebuilding. So our buzz has kind of been the time is now, and that's where we're putting out a call to each of you to be part of our committee and our vision so we can stand here in a year and talk about our first class of scholars that will, in essence, change the face of Destin.
So donations, all right, now you got to talk.
So up until this, all of our donations have been just from committed parents and people that live in Destin who have 1, 2, 3 children have personally reached out to us to offer their financial support. Our first phase goal for donations is $85,000. That is solely to pay our consultant to write the charter, and the other $5,000 is for our attorney who is establishing our nonprofit. So we are about halfway to our goal. Just through a grassroots effort, we haven't put out a GoFundMe, we haven't put out a donate button online. It's just people calling me and saying, come pick up a check. So it's been awesome and humbling, and so we're very excited. We are going to be making a public fundraiser available to all who want to give $20 if they can, or $100, and so that is coming. And then our second phase goal will be from application approval to the school opening, which will also cover not just our consulting fees, but our basically just the additional facility and working on getting the location and the build out and everything. So our Christy knows said that 500 is usually sufficient to get to that point. And once we have the school open, obviously then we get the state funds per child for the seats that we have available for those kids. So it's really just getting to doors open in July 2020, and then we are open.
Anyone want to add anything?
You're going to say, what the heck is an orthopedic surgeon involved here with this program? Well, I was the chief of orthopedic trauma UAB for 30 years, and I was the chief of orthopedic trauma Children's Hospital in Alabama for 30 years. And how many kids you think are bused every day from here to Destin to their high school, for Walton, whatever? How many kids, more or less? More than 700. More than 700. And just for the safety of the kids, we need something here. We need something here. With the traffic that is going here in Destin, that sometimes I feel like I'm visiting my son in Los Angeles at the 405. It's awful. And we need for the safety of the kids. Thank you.
I just want to say, I've been involved the last couple of months, and I have been super impressed and learned a lot from sitting with these women here and how they're running this. And all I can tell you is don't get in their way, because it's going to be a bad day for you.
Okay, so we touched on this briefly, and we do have some sign-up sheets in the back if any of you are wanting to participate on a committee, or even if it's not on a committee, you just want to leave your name and say, I don't know what I want to do yet, but I do want to be involved. please feel free to do so. Those are on that back table over there. But these are, I've got this one and the next slide are several of the committees that we're trying to fill right now. We've clearly reached a point where, you know, all of us standing up here and the few that are missing, we can't do it all ourselves. So now is when you guys step in and, you know, we're going to put you to task because we are all doing this together. It's a community effort. Some other committees that we're doing now. And of course, further down the line, we're going to have some other committees as we start looking for teachers, principals, staff, building operations and logistics, and that sort of a thing. So there's going to be multiple opportunities from here on out getting this off the ground and up and running and successful. So really, that is our presentation tonight. Do any of you have anything you want to add before we close things out? Okay, yes, social media. We've got the Facebook page up here. We'll have a website at some point, but right now social media is the best way to contact us, or email info@destinhighschool.org. Like I said, this is a work in progress. We've made tremendous progress, and we are inching ever so closely to really making this a reality. Let Sarah finish.
We are very excited. We've had so many business owners and just leaders in our community reach out and offering ways to help. So we are excited to announce that our first event will be February 7th, 2019. And we're going to have a silent auction event that's kind of centered around Valentine's Day so that you can come out and get your loved one something special. So look for that. We're going to announce details soon, but we are going to be collecting many amazing things for silent auction for the benefit of Destin High School, and all of the money will go to the Destin High School. So we're very excited about that. February 7th.
Preble?
Yes.
Do you mind if I ask you a question?
No, absolutely. That's where I was
What kind of
going next.
involvement have you had with the school board, and if not much, what role would they play in the school in the future?
So the way the process works, and yes, we have been keeping them apprised. Mr. Dewey Destin is the Destin representative to the school board, and he has been CC'd on everything that we do, so he's been kept apprised all along. And furthermore, actually, Dr. Christy No, who runs the Collaborative Educators Network, or Educational Network, she is actually reaching out to the school board and just giving them sort of a heads up. You know, they've got an official group now working on this, and it'll be coming to you in February. So we've definitely kept them in the loop. They do have to approve it.
In February?
In February. But as
Is
long...
that a date certain?
Go ahead.
Is that a date certain?
It is, yes. Okay. Absolutely. That's what we're paying them for, to get it done in February. And then once it's approved, then you have that, I believe it's like an 18-month window before you actually open the facility.
And then once it's open, what's the school board's role?
My understanding
Relative
is that obviously...
to fully accredited, like Fort Walton Beach High School or Niceville.
Right. Now, obviously, we're still held to the same standards as all schools are through the Department of Education in Florida. However, there's certain things that we're exempt from with Okaloosa County, like building code. We don't have to follow school code. We can just follow regular commercial building code. So there's certain things that we don't have to go through them with. I think they do obviously oversee, but I honestly don't believe that really the authority. They approve the charter, and then I believe the manager, or the management, if you will, is the Department of Education who approves the application. And then every few years, you get your charter renewed. They come and inspect, they check how you're doing, there's a process, and as long as everything has been handled properly and is fine, then your charter is renewed.
Last question. Location and ideas on how to fund it, or
yes. So we have 3 locations, mostly 2 that we're focusing on right now, and we have spoken to the owners of those properties. We are not releasing the actual locations. I will say they are in the city of Destin, in the city limits. The owners are very interested, but clearly we're working with what they call charter school financial advisors, or there's like a term that they use. They specifically work to fund charter school ventures. So we're working with them. They're going to get involved, and we'll talk with each of the final two of the owners that we're working with and decide which is the better option and work out details, and hopefully that's it.
And how does the funding for that come? Does it come from the state per child? I mean,
Well, there's several ways to do
is that the
it.
fundraising goal that you would have to set?
Well,
'Cause it-
eventually, we would be, funded through state funds. But to get off the ground and going, we have to get all those funds ourselves. What happens is, and my understanding of this is not a financial person, is that these financial consultants have the option of getting bonds. They also have the option of purchasing the property themselves and then leasing it back to us once we get our state funding, which I believe is something like $7,100 per student through the Department of Education. Yeah, if you know some, feel free.
So the way it works is there are developer investor companies, and all they do is build charter schools. So what they do is they will come in and we will sit down with them and we will analyze the locations from their financial standpoint. And they can purchase the building, they can build it out, they can lease it back to us, and then at a future date, we have a buyout once the school is established, successful, and running. So they understand that we're getting our state funds per student, and we have an allocated budget to the facility in that fund. So when we open our doors, we are getting that money. And a portion of that money will go to our lease costs. So we're not looking at necessarily building from the ground up. They do that if it is more cost efficient than doing a build out on an existing structure, but it doesn't have to be, a complete build from the ground up. So, and we're gonna go through the process of meeting with each one because they already know our consultant and have worked with her and built other charter schools. So just having her brings credibility to the transaction.
And that's happening in the next couple of weeks.
Great. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Anything else? Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Preble. Board members. We got yellow cards. Any blue cards? All right, we'll move right into item 3, our public comment period. I don't see any blue cards. Any individuals can, if you haven't filled out a card, you can fill out a blue card for items on the agenda, yellow card for any other subject matter. Or after I go through all these cards, there's only one, I'll look out in the audience. If anybody would like to speak, they can just raise their hand and give public comment on anything that's important to them. So the first person that would like to step up to the plate is Ron Sandstead. Did I say that right, Ron? There you go. Just hit the button, give your name and where you live, and have at it.
Ron, hit the button, sir.
My name's Ron Sandstead, and my wife and I live at 337 Calhoun here in Destin. And this is actually a happy story. I don't know if you remember, a little over a year and a half ago, I came before you and I did a PowerPoint presentation about the Destin Banner Art Project. And it's taken a little over a year and a half. But now I now have a commitment from city staff that I will have permanently installed banner poles to use on Main Street. And beginning in January, when the Christmas banners come down, I'll be able to put up my artist-created banners. And what was passed out to you is the rack card that I'm going to be using to attract sponsors as well as artists. I already have I already have 9 artists that are going to be have their art copied and then put on banners, and then we'll be hanging those in January. I'm still looking for sponsors. I have 4 or 5 sponsors that have verbally committed to helping finance the banner poles. But I can use some more. Anyway, so that should start happening in January of this year, and it's been a long time. And Skip has been with me on this. We've been working on this for 5 years. Awfully long time to have something good to come to city, but it's going to happen. And we've got our art collected, and you're going to see us in January. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it very much. Looking forward to it. Is anyone else in the audience would like to step up to the plate? Just give your name, recognize yourself, and your address.
Jeff Burns, soon to be former city attorney in about a month and a half. I would like to donate $1,000 to your fund for the Destin City High School. So however I can do that. So.
Thank you so very much.
Now, we can make this kind of like an auction. Now, Mr. Burns has stepped up here with $1,000. Do I hear $2,000? Yeah, the boys' restroom.
Keep them coming, Mayor.
All right. Anyone else would like to step up to the plate and share their thoughts or concerns or have any? There we go. All right. Well, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close this portion of the meeting, and we'll take our interim city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. For the viewing audience's benefit, my name is Webb Orem. I'm the IT manager, but Lance, our current interim city manager, is taking this Thanksgiving holiday to spend some time with his family, and well-deserved. On the agenda tonight, under the city manager reports, we start off with some financial housekeeping issues to provide some background on 4A, which is the final budget amendment for fiscal year 2018. We have Mr. Bragg Farmer, our finance director, and he will provide some additional information on this.
This is just the cleanup from the fiscal year 2018 closing of the year. It's required by state statute that we balance the budget to our actual spending at the end of the year. I believe of the 32 departments within the city, all but about 10 did not need a budget amendment, and those 10 are being represented here, as well as the other operations within the city. We had more than sufficient funding from unspent funds during the year, as well as additional revenue that we received in excess of our budgeted amounts to cover these 10 budget departments. And so I just ask that you approve this resolution so we can finalize the closing of the year and start our audit next week.
Okay, so I'd like to go fishing for a motion to approve.
Mr. Mayor, I'll be glad to make the motion. I move that resolution 18-44 be approved. Second.
I have a motion, I have a second. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, we'll take this to a vote. Vote is unanimous, so moved.
And for item 4B, we have our fourth quarter of fiscal year 2018 financial investment report. Again, Mr. Bragg Farmer.
This is just a lot of the same information in a little different format. It's the quarterly financial report that you see 4 times a year. This is really just for information only. If you have any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer them today, or if you have any questions in the next week or so, when you have a better chance to look at it, I'd be more than welcome to answer them at that time. But this is really just for your information.
Does anybody have any questions about that? Let's go ahead and, do we need, is there an approval on this? No, okay. All right. Item 4C. And Ray, I hit the button one time too many, so put me back into the discussion format if you would, please.
For item 4C, we have discussion of ordinance 18-15 LC, and I'm going to hand this over to Mr. Jeff Burns.
I think Kyle wants to take a stab at it. I'll fill in if he can.
Very generous, Jeff, once again. So we've just added
His charity has been exemplified tonight numerous times.
So we've just added a few items that are highlighted for your perusal to this wheeled vehicles ordinance. The beach vendor permit, which I think was on the last, at the last meeting, and then also the construction beach permit and the decals. Hopefully you had a chance to review that. If you have any questions, we're here to answer them. Also, I believe that the interim city manager has an item, and maybe Jeff could explain exactly what he wishes to add.
Yeah, we'll need to at least change it before it goes to the LPA, or if it comes back to you again before y'all approve it before it goes to the LPA. But the interim city manager indicated that there's been a bit of an issue, I guess, in the past of some of the vendors maybe not having the right to traverse someone's property to get to the beach. And so as a condition of receiving the decal permit to be able to operate a vehicle on the beach, he would want there to be something in the ordinance that makes it clear that they have to show proof, written proof. Like, it doesn't have to be a formal, contract or anything, but it has to be some sort of proof from the owner that of the property that they're crossing, that they have a right to actually access the beach. And you don't have to commit to that position at this time, but I think he at least wants that language in there, and then y'all can always cut that out before y'all pass the final version. So that we will add that language at least in to go before the LPA, unless y'all strenuously are opposed to it tonight. We don't need a motion tonight,
Okay,
Mayor.
all right. Well, I got a couple council members that would probably like to pick y'all's brain on that one. First would be Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. The only question I have is about in A, where it says the half-ton pickup truck, where it says or smaller than a half-ton pickup truck. Only issue with that is pretty much any Ford F-150 is a half-ton pickup truck, and I don't know that the beach vendors need a F-150 or something equal size to get down on the beach with their umbrellas and stuff. I think that's what we're trying to prevent, is tearing up the dunes and the beaches. I'd like to see maybe that taken out, and maybe a weight limit on a vehicle around, I don't know, most of those side-by-sides of four-wheelers are like 1,000 pounds, 1,200 pounds. I don't know if we need to go with actual weight limit or something to that, like a side-by-side vehicle. I mean, the ATV, I don't know. Just need to put a little bit different language in there, I think, on that.
And if you want input on maybe what the sheriff's department would be able to actually classify, Captain Nix is back here, but also I do know they prefer things to be a little more straight cut, so if you try to put like a confusing weight limit on it, that might be harder. If you describe it like an ATV, they'll be able to identify an ATV or something to that effect. So half ton, everyone knows what that is. It's like an F-150 standard pickup truck, but so that was not something that would require a lot of judgment on their part. So if y'all want to go something smaller than that, I would just use a class like ATV or not a golf cart.
Like a strictly off-road vehicle, because I mean, like in Walton County, that's what you use, like a four-wheel drive Gator or something with pulling a trailer behind it that they can get on the beach. It doesn't tear up the dunes as bad, so maybe we can look at that a little bit and maybe.
During, when we had a couple of the vendors up here, I think they were just talking about using their pickup trucks to bring their big boxes at the beginning of the season and then again at the end of the season, or if they do have an ATV and it craps out on them, to come and get that. Do you think that's?
Yeah, I think
what your concern is,
yeah,
if they're down there once a week in pickup trucks, or?
I think we was talking about that as well, as giving them once at the first of the year and once at the end of the year to take a half ton or something down there to get it all. And of course, that's even during an emergency or hurricane, when they need to get down there and get it up in a hurry. But I'd like to see something in there where it's.
Could y'all define what you would like the season to be, maybe? At least, could you give an idea of what you would want the season to be? That's a little subjective. So would it be from March 1st to October 31st is the season, and so they would they'd drop their boxes off and pick them up maybe right around that time frame, the beginning and the end of that. Is that something that y'all would think about?
Yeah, I'd like to talk to some of them just to kind of see what their time period is when they all try to put their boxes down there and then pull them back, so.
From past experience, now we've had a couple years where spring break has begun at the end of February, which is really an anomaly, but it happens. They get all their stuff out before spring break, so we need to be looking in that sort of a time frame. And then, you know, they'll go weekends past Labor Day, but main 100 days, I would say through Labor Day, just after Labor Day. Steve, would you agree with that?
Yeah, you know, of course, weekends are different. They really go through October according to the weather. But you know, what would worry me more than anything, I think, is that with what Mr. Braden was talking about as far as the smaller vehicle, I just don't know if you has enough power to pull the boxes off the beach and stuff that they're talking about they need the truck for.
Well, I know, you know, first part of the season and end of the season, they will be allowed to take a half-ton vehicle, whatever, full drive truck to get it. And then during a hurricane or something like that, pretty much all those orders throw it out the window anyway, and they go down there and do whatever means necessary to get their stuff off the beach.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So basically, it's just the day-to-day stuff if they need to go down there day-to-day. Gotcha.
Yeah, 'cause a lot of them put their, they do go down there. I've seen them in Walton County. They got a little gator, the four-wheel drive, that they have a pull trailer and they put all their stuff on it.
Be better than every day on the big truck.
Right.
Ms. Ramswell, did you say pretty much what you wanted to say? What?
No, actually, I had something slightly different, and mine was whether we took into consideration, I'm trying to remember my train of thought now because I was focused on this. What was it I mentioned to you when we discussed this item? It was something about...
Yeah, it was related to the times that the vehicles could be on the beach, I believe.
That's right. We have a time frame on here listed to 5 p.m. to, I believe, 9 a.m. And when they're setting up at the beginning of the season and then pulling it all off at the end of the season, is there a way we could make some sort of stipulation that during those times that those hours are not limited to that extent? Because it'll take them ages to pull all their stuff out upon the initial start of the season.
We can do that, and I was just thinking while y'all were talking, maybe set it up to where the whole month of February and the whole month of September are the beginning and the end season months when they can use the trucks, because it can always vary, you know, in February when the good time to drop the boxes off would be, and the same thing with September, you know, when the colder weather's going to come, and then those could be the 2 months when the times are suspended like you're indicating. Is that something y'all would like to see?
If I may.
Sounds good to me.
Joey Forgione, who works with our vendors, he made a suggestion from February to October. He said that was generally the months that the vendors were working. And that was through October 31st, is that right? Gotcha.
I think we need to incorporate some of these changes and they come back to us.
Yeah, and Mr. Braden, I didn't mean to cut you off when I jumped to Preble, but you kind of both were talking along the same lines, so you're good? All right, Tuffy, did you have anything to add, or are you good?
I was just saying, I think there's been enough changes here to where we need to bring this back and look at it here again.
Skip.
Yeah, could we just not send this back? I mean, we're going to send it to the LPA. Could we just not send it to the LPA along? And I don't even see any vendors here tonight, so maybe we need to have the vendors because they're the ones that are really going to be wanting this. And they're going to know the time frames, and they're going to know what kind of vehicle they need, and maybe they got justification for a half-ton pickup, I don't know. But can't the vendors and the LPA and the lawyers work this out and then bring it back to us, rather than us sitting here going back and forth all night?
I would actually recommend maybe taking the input that we've received tonight, we'll revise it, take it to the LPA. I do think that would be the most efficient way to go about it, because if the vendors show up to the LPA, then their input can come in front of y'all, and y'all can make those changes at that time. And so as long as they're encouraged to go to the LPA, I think the process will work.
The only thing I'm thinking is it would shorten it if they've already made the input to the LPA, and then you craft it so that it's got all those inputs already in it, rather than bringing it back to us, and then we got to make more changes to it.
We don't need a motion to do that either, if that's, we're getting head nods.
Sold. That's what we're going to do. Right? All right. Let's move on.
All right, so next on the agenda is 4E, which is the Public Beach
All
Initiative.
right. Tell me how to get my deal up there.
Well, Mr. Doug Rayner is going to help us
Doug.
out on that.
You get me up there, please.
You've lost control of your mouse.
The mouse.
So, as the city manager is going to work back to IT manager here in a second, and
Are you working on it, Doug? We're going to try to make this really quick, too, so once we get technology on. Did I push the wrong button up here, sir? I'm good. Well, I'll press on without the mouse. July 26th of 2018, special city council meeting. We had a motion that authorized me to start a beach access initiative. The direction I was given is to prioritize available land options, identify, decide upon funding sources, and guidance moving forward. And that's what we're going to do tonight, hopefully. I'm going to be fishing for some motions and some guidance from you all on those. We did the brief presentation last meeting. Since that, we've had 2 additional properties added. I don't know if you looked on your briefing materials closely at the 2 additionals, but what...
There was nothing in the brief, I don't think.
There wasn't? Okay. So I'll
Could
show
you
them
have
to
that
you
emailed
tonight.
out?
Okay. As soon as we can figure out what's going on, it'd make it really easier to do. So I don't have to justify or explain the need for beach access in Destin proper, especially in the Crystal Beach area. As we all know, Destin was built out in the late 70s and all through the early 80s, and so we have very little actual beach access. So some of the properties that we worked on and we found, and you're back in, let's see.
That's starting the new one. That's the last of the old one.
That's the last of the old one? I'm in the new one now.
Yep.
All right. I'll go back all the way up then. Okay, we talked about, in the very first presentation, we talked about showing the access points that we have in Crystal Beach. Most of them are just that. There's just an access point. There's just a walkway. There's no beach. Once you get down on the sand, you're actually, if you go to your right or your left, you're on private property. We do have a couple, I think the Tarpon and the Tarpon Street, I think what it is. No, it's the shores at Crystal Beach. We've got 68 foot of public access, and at the June's Dune, there's 80 foot. And then we have James Lee Park, which the county owns, which is 1,500 feet. Let me go move through here. So one of the first properties that we talked about was what is now called Capri by the Gulf. It's an actual 300 foot of beachfront access. The whole piece of property is 2.1 acres. The asking price of that is $13.2 million, and the reason I'm going to bring up those asking prices is because when we make a motion to prioritize these 1 through 5, I guess, or 1 through 6, the priority is going to determine how much money we try to work through grants and Okaloosa County TDC and money from the city. And so to keep that in mind on properties, and I'll go over the list at the end. So we had the Capri by the Gulf. It's 300 foot of beachfront. It's at a very important place in Crystal Beach. It gives a central west access. The other property that we talked about, that's Capri. That's what it looks like from the aerial. And right behind there is 300 feet of beachfront. The next one is by the shores at Crystal Beach Park, which the city of Destin owns, which is 68 feet. And the Crystal Port, its Gulf Front Shores at Crystal Beach West expansion, would give an additional 60 feet. And that price on that was $3.6 million. And these are, the prices that I'm giving you, those are the asking prices. That doesn't mean those are going to be the ones that we pay. But that puts us in the ballpark. And I'll go back over those when we get to the motion stage. The next picture shows that's the city of Destin, shores of Crystal Beach West, and the property is just on the west side of it, on the west side of the property that we own. If we got that one, that would give us a total of 108 feet. No, 118 feet of public access. The third one we showed was the East Pass Preserve, Parcel B. It's 11.69 acres. We don't have a price from that owner. That was what comes with that 11 acres is 20.35 acres of deeded access on state property. So if the city was to purchase this preserve, you would actually have public access to 32 acres of sand and waterfront, most of it on the pass. There's some problems with Parcel C, some of it being access points. Now I'm going to jump through, that's Parcel B, in the 20.35 acres of state-owned property. But there's deeded access to that. I'm going through that. All right, and the last thing we talked about the other night was we have some deeded public beach access that has been somewhat miscued. That's what it used to look like behind that private property, and that's what it looks like today. So we directed our attorneys to send a note to the landowners asking them for them to address this situation. And have we done that? And do we hear back from them yet?
Yeah, we did, and it's in the agenda under I-2.
Okay.
The letter I wrote, and then we did hear back from them. They requested until December 7th to provide a response instead of 10 days because that would have landed on Thanksgiving. So we agreed to that, and we'll have a response by the 7th.
Thank you very much. Now, since that presentation on those three properties and that deeded access that had been blocked off, a couple people contacted us shortly thereafter, and there's a landowner, and this is Gulffront, the shores of Crystal Beach East expansion. Now, you'll see the Crystal Port, which was offered for sale, and you can see our property. Well, the picture with the red roofs, that gentleman is called and offered that for sale, and that is 67 feet versus Crystal Port, which is only 50 feet. So it's a little bit more property, but we haven't been able to get a price from the owner quite yet. So that one, but the good news about this access is not only do we already own a pavilion and stuff there, but there's possibility of buying both pieces of property, and that would wrap us up and give us a total almost a little over 200 feet on the beach. That's what that looks like. That's the east expansion. It's 1.9 acres, 67 feet. That's an aerial view of it. You can see the Crystal Ports on the left in the photo. The Destin property's in the middle, and the red roof is the piece of property that the gentleman said that he would be willing to sell. And the next piece of property, and as I spoke before, I really like that Capri parcel because of the size of it and the fact it was 300 foot. But we were notified by the owner of the Tarpon Beach Access expansion, and it's 3 properties just to the west of Sea Oats. It's 2.4 acres. It's 336 linear feet on the water. I'll show you another view of it. It's those 3 right there. Sea Oats is just to the right of that. It's 336 feet. That's an aerial. You can see Sea Oats on your left and the 3 properties on your right. It's right by the Tarpon Beach access point that the city already owns. It's adjacent to it. Let me go back. And the asking price on that, 336 linear feet, is, looking at it real quick, 17 million. And in a minute, I'll give you guys the linear foot price. And when you take those into consideration of how we want to prioritize these properties, not just the asking price, not just the linear feet on the beach, but I'll give you a price per linear foot of their asking price, just to help you make a decision on which properties you'd like to see, number 1, number 2, number 3. And
Mayor,
then,
Mayor?
yes, go ahead.
Those last 3 properties you just shown, is that all one owner or there's 3 different owners? Look like right there.
It is, I believe, one owner.
Thank you.
And then, and this is Henderson Beach.
Mayor, if I could ask a question.
Yes.
Is it being evaluated, some of this place that you can go 30 feet off the roadway and you fall off into a, basically onto the beach. Is it being evaluated, well, how many parking spaces could be utilized on any of these spaces? Some of these places you can't fill in and some you might be able to. And so are you kind of looking at that as to what we could do with the property as far as parking goes and things like that when you're doing your evaluation?
One thing I'd like for all of you to take into consideration is the locations of these in relationship to where Henderson State Park is. The 1,500 foot of Okaloosa County Park is, most of these properties are in between there. A lot of the people that utilize those are already vacationing in Crystal Beach proper and are either walking or riding a bike to these. So parking, just like in our Tarpon Beach access, I think we've got 5 parking spots or 7 parking spots and a little pavilion, is because most people that use that don't drive there. And some of these properties, the bigger ones like the Capri and the one we were just looking at, 2 acres, you could put a fair amount of parking on them, but I don't think parking is the number one concern. I think linear feet is the number one concern. Number 2 is, especially when we're going to apply for grant money, they're going to want to see some of the dunes stay in a pristine, have a little dune walkover, and maybe a pavilion and showers and stuff like that. I don't think parking, there will be some parking on some of these properties, which goes to reason, but most importantly is the other factors, how much linear feet, can we put some little upland type pavilion stuff like that?
I agree with you. I hope you understand what I'm saying. It could do 20 feet off the roadway and it's steep drop off.
Right.
And the property's really not that great to us then. So
Right.
that makes the difference. So thank you.
And then the last one here was the Gulf Front. Make sure I found that one. Gulf Front Henderson Beach Villas. And this particular property is 1.1 acres, and it's 205 linear feet. And that's the Henderson Beach Villas. And I think this is the furthest east property out of all the properties, the one closest to.
What was the asking price?
West, I'm sorry. And it's, let's see, Tarpon Beach access, Gulf Front, Henderson. Yes. Yeah, that's Matthew Drive right there by it, and the asking price of that is $12 million. So what I would like to entertain is, even though we have 5 or 6 pieces of property,
Real quick, just because the person did contact us also, I know Mr. Bauman, even though we don't have a graphic for it, there was
It's
a
that property.
Oh, it's that property?
Yeah,
Okay.
Webb, I think, added it.
I'm sorry, Mayor. I just wanted to make sure, because I know Kyle talked to one of the owners.
yes. So basically, by prioritizing these, whether it's we take a shot at 3 properties or 2 properties, maybe just 2 of the bigger ones or 2 big ones and a small one, and we put a couple other, number 4, number 5. What I want to take into consideration is that in the motion, in the discussion of setting which ones that are the most desirable to this council, that we take into account that maybe we shoot for 3 properties so we know what kind of, based on the asking price, that we have a grant writer can give a general idea what kind of money we're trying to shoot for outside of just what those asking prices are. Also, after we prioritize these, then I'd like to get permission from the from you to give the city manager permission to get appraisals on these properties based on their priority, and then we'll start the process at that point. And just to kind of follow up, I'll go by the properties and give you a linear foot price. The Capri, which is 300 linear feet, the asking price is $13.2 million. That comes out to $44,000 per linear foot. The next, the Tarpon Beach Access Expansion, which is a little bit bigger, it's 336 linear feet. That's at $17 million, and that's at $50.6 thousand per linear foot. The Henderson Beach Village, which is 205 linear feet, the asking price is $12 million. That puts it at $58.6 thousand linear foot. It's Henderson Beach Villas, 205 linear feet, $12 million is the asking price. That brings it to $58.6 thousand per linear foot. And that per linear foot may help you prioritize a little bit. That's why I'm closing with that. The next longest or the next biggest piece of property was the Shores at Crystal Beach East expansion. We don't have a price other than it was listed in 2012, and everything has changed since 2012. So I'm assuming that between now and probably our next meeting that we can get a price on that. And even if we set a prioritization of the properties tonight, we can always change that as we move forward. Some of these people may not want to negotiate or take less price or that kind of thing. So it might, just because the property's at number 4 today, it might be number 2 later on in the negotiation process.
Do you have the current taxable value of it? Just for a ballpark?
Not right now. In 2012, it was listed for $3.37 million. In 2012, it was listed for just over $3 million. So it's probably in the ballpark of what the Crystal Port folks are asking. And Crystal Port, which is just across on the other side of our property, that is listed at 3.6, and that's $73,000 per linear foot. It's the most expensive one. So that other property might be in that same ballpark. There's a couple properties that are going to have substantial bulldozing, which I'm sure that the grant, especially if we use restore funding or Florida land grant, they're going to want sand dunes and maybe a pavilion, not a big giant parking lot. So there'll be some expenditures with not just purchasing the property, but turning condos and buildings that are going to be bulldozed back into a park type setting. I have a couple questions here. First will be Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Mayor. I know of 2 Crystal Beach property owners that are also interested. So I don't know how you want to consider them if we're ranking them tonight. If we want to, anyways, they need to talk to someone at the city. So.
I don't have a problem with that. I mean, we started out with 3, now we got 6. We may end up with 9. Maybe we just don't prioritize them tonight. I was just thinking in the interest of get going on the grant writing process that we do that tonight.
We could always rank them tonight and then look at them, reevaluate when we've added these new properties in, however you want to proceed, Mayor.
Mayor,
I'll go ahead and make a motion. I think your list up there is well thought out. It's reasonable. You've based it on the per linear foot price. I think you've also taken into consideration probably a bit of the legal turmoil and problems that come with some of these properties, which push them down towards the bottom of the list. And I think probably I would suggest that we go with a priority list of what you have there. I may give you a list. I think the Capri would be my first choice. I think that the one next door to the Sea Oats was the Henderson Beach Villas, correct?
That was, yes, Tarpon Beach Access Expansion, 336 linear feet.
Yeah, that would be my number 2, and then the Henderson Beach Villas would be my number 3. Furthermore, I'd make the motion to instruct our city manager and attorneys to work with you and get some appraisals on those 3 properties. And furthermore, I believe Mr. Morgan had 2 more properties that we want to review. If he gives that information to the attorneys, I'd say that we'll make a motion to instruct you to contact them and at the next meeting bring us just a little bit of informational on those 2 properties, and we'll bring them into the discussion.
Second.
Okay, then we have a list of 1, 2, 3. These other properties, if you don't mind, we'll just keep them on a list. See, just, you know, we won't like push them down or rate them or anything like that. We'll find out what Mr. Morgan's thing are, but we'll start here, and this way we could, that kind of, if you guys approve this, number 1, number 2, number 3, that gives us a budget to start working with, and we can get going in the grant writing process. Mr. Morgan or Mr. Destin, you guys are done? Are you good? I got Ms. Ramswell.
Thank you, Mayor. So my line of thinking is slightly different. We have an existing structure, an existing bathrooms, facilities, everything at the Hutchison Beach location, which you've listed up here as Shores at Crystal Beach. So to me, that is less we would have to build and try to improve because it's already there. So purchasing the properties on either side would therefore then not necessitate additional buildings or that sort of a thing. So I like the idea of looking into the properties west and east of that. I also like the idea of the property Henderson Beach Villas because that is, like I mentioned, it's just east of where that intersection is with Matthew. And those stretches, I know from being out there, those are very hostile situations because there is no room at all for folks. And I think that would be a nice location because it's gathering all of that west side of Crystal Beach. So those would actually be my preferences over the others. My other thought is the property that Ms. Brown had mentioned that she would sell that was immediately west of James Lee Park. If we're not interested in purchasing that, which, I mean, I would think we would be, since it's adjacent to the county park, might we not reach out to the county and see about having them purchase it?
That's why when Patty reached out to me, Ms. Ramswell, the park's already there, 1,500 feet, and we have such a need in the center and the western end of Crystal Beach. That's why I just did pursue it. Had nothing to do with the price, and it's great property. It was just based purely on need, location wise. But that.
Mr. Baumann, can you illuminate some of the legal issues that come along with the Crystal Beach expansion and West expansions properties? Because I know that I shared Ms. Ramswell's sentiment that Hutchison was already there, but I believe that there was some issues with it legally that might drop it down on the attractiveness scale.
Mr. Burns, are you aware of the?
Yeah, one of the 2 is not actually marketable at all currently. It's tied up in litigation. I forget the parent companies, but I know the principal developer of one told myself and the mayor at a meeting that it's it's not marketable right now, and it won't be for the foreseeable future. So really I don't remember which one, only one of those two is actually on the market, so to speak, and could actually be sold today. So, and I think it's the larger parcel is available for purchase, and I think do we have a price on that, Mayor? I think there's the 2012 asking price.
Yeah, the Crystal Port condominium, the 50 linear foot is on the market and it's for sale. But the piece right next to it that is not developed at all would be a nice addition. It can't be sold. Maybe for
It probably can't. There's a large company currently litigating with a smaller local company, and it's been tied up for years, and it's not the simplest lawsuit I've ever heard.
Yeah, on the map, on the chart right now, the property that he's making reference to is 2940. That can't be sold. 2942 is Crystal Port. The city property is 2966, and then the east portion is 2968. Ms. Ramswell, we went 1, 2, 3. How about if we just put those two Crystal Beach East and West down at number 4 right now?
And wasn't there an issue with one of the owners at Capri that wasn't interested in selling out? So there's a legal issue there as well?
Yeah, that's why Mr. Jay Roberts came and spoke on that issue. Unlike a condominium or homeowners association where you own the space, but you don't own the ground. In the Capri situation, they actually own the ground. So if she didn't want to sell and she's in the very northeast corner, well, she can keep her building. We just build our park. She'd have new neighbors every single morning as they show up at the beach. So that is it's an issue, but it's a non-issue because actually, you know, if she owns that sand or that 700 square foot little condominium, she don't want to sell it. She don't have to sell it, but everything around it can be sold and turned into a parking lot or sand dune or whatever it is. But one of the things that I did talk to Mr. Roberts about and Mr. Blaine, Dr. Blaine, was that he felt that if we went forward with it and we talked about developing that as be a public park owned by the city for duration, that her feelings on the issue may change somewhat, seeing how it would have a net benefit to the community. Next, Mr. Braden.
Real quick, Mayor, you should probably build that into any calculation you have there on the linear feet, because it's going to take some time and effort to deal with that one holdout seller. She's not really a holdout on the whole deal, but there's about, I think, a $6,000 difference between the Capri and the Tarpon Street property based on linear feet. And so they're really probably a little more even if you take into consideration the fact there is a lone holdout seller at this point in time. That could, make it a little more expensive down the line.
Yeah, and right now the Capri is the cheapest per linear foot, so that might jack it up a couple. Yeah.
Price.
Yeah, just take into consideration. Mr. Braden.
What was on your first, on the list, what was the first one per foot?
According to the motion made by Mr. Destin, the Capri was number 1. It was 300 linear feet. Asking price is $13.2 million, which breaks down to $44,000 per linear foot.
Was that the first property on the list? Can we go back to that?
Yes, that was go back there for me.
I think it was the third one.
The mouse is out of control.
Mouse is out of control.
That's it. Oh, back up.
Yes.
Oh, the list, yeah. Purchase option summary. There we go.
There we go. What was the Tarpon Beach access? What was that? The
336 linear feet. It's more centrally located. It's more westerly located. Tarpon Street.
Right.
We have beach access there. The city does 6-8 feet beach access. And it's 336 linear feet, is $17 million, is his asking price, which is $50.6 thousand per linear foot. 50.6. And that was number 2 on Mr. Destin's motion.
My thoughts was kind of along the same lines as Mrs. Ramswell on the Henderson Yeah, the Henderson Beach Villas, because it's on the far west end of Crystal Beach, away from everything else. It seemed like they need some beach access down on that end of
Yeah,
town.
and I think the distance between the Capri property and the Henderson Beach Villas is probably over a half a mile,
Yeah. I mean, we got,
maybe even 3/4 mile further to the west.
what is James Lee on the east end, and my personal feeling is need something back on the west end,
Well,
somewhere closer to it. That's all.
I'm hoping, because we need beach access so much, that we can find the grant money to get all
both.
3 of them.
That'd be good.
That's my
That's
shared
the goal.
sentiment as well.
And I think that's what Mr. Destin's sentiment was, is we go ahead and grab for the golden ring, because this opportunity, the restore money, that's not going to be around ever again, and hopefully, I say that. And just with the issue of customary use and the battle that's raging in the state legislation over it, what's going on in the counties next to us, there's just no better time than to try to purchase. So,
well, we hope to.
I don't have a problem with going for all 4 of them,
Yeah.
but it's just going to be a matter of what we can get
Well, I
out of
agree.
it. And just to remind everyone, in a situation like this, you got your Triumph funding, you got the Florida Land Grant, you got Okaloosa County Tourist Development Council, and the city. It's going to, we'll have to put some money, probably, in, if nothing else, just in the maintenance of the facility after it's built. But the funding's not going to come just from one source. That's not how they like to operate. They like to see everybody. They like to see the county chip in, and the city chip in, and the state chip in, when it comes, especially when it comes to the Triumph funding. So that's what we're going to shoot for. And the reason I want prioritization of these properties is not, we may only get 1 of the 4, but we need to start the grant writing process, and this helps facilitate that. So that's what we're trying to get by tonight.
Where was that $100 million that we helped the county out with the Crestview? Wasn't that the Restore Act or the Triumph Fund? And we was going to get the next big project on the south end?
Well, like I said, the timing's good.
Sounds good.
All right. Let's see, Mr. Marler.
Forget the gold, go for the platinum. Let's get them all. The only thing, I'm for all of them, to be totally honest with you. If we can figure out a way to get every one of them, I'd love to see that happen, because we do need as much beach. The only thing that I'm looking at is that the ones that have existing structures on it, if we go that road and the structures are in fairly decent shape, I would like to see us getting Habitat for Humanity and various other people involved to possibly help us offset the cost of demolition by being able to get volunteers to come in and be able to get anything usable out of that. I think that would be a boon for us too, and in the demolition process when we get to that, when we get to that point, because looking at that house that's right next to the Crystal Beach Park is that's a pretty elaborate place right there, and the Capri, no telling, I'm sure there's material in there that could be used somewhere else. I hate to just see them destroyed and then piled up and thrown away. So that's my only concern.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Morgan.
Yeah, last point. Parker, you're on the TDC, and Mayor, you're close with some people in the county. We've seen what Walton County is doing. Do you have any indication that our TDC is willing to work with us here?
Yeah, I've been a member of the TDC, and I pitched them the idea of committing to this entire idea before I even pitched it to the city, because I knew that really the deep pockets are with the TDC to begin with, but they were very receptive to it, and they're saying, well, bring us properties, and so that's that process that we're going through now. Part of it will begin, and how you bring properties is that you get appraisals, you get generally a set purchase price, and then you get into a sales contract with a series of contingencies that say that if you get the funding, then we shall sell to you. We have to have those types of contracts in hand before we go really seriously pitch these layers of government for funding. And the mayor's been wonderful in this process, and we're making forward progress. But yes, TDC has committed in concept, and in furthermore, I gave a presentation, a very brief one, an informal one, to the Restore Act last month, and they were very receptive. The Restore Act understands, I think, deeply that they're going to receive a lot of requests for funding for what is a very large and finite pool of money for a lot of what it's called, if you're looking at generational sort of opportunities, economic stimuluses are flash in the pan, so to speak. You get a couple of years of a bump, but is it going to really last? They're very interested in generational, long-term perpetuity type projects. These really do fit the bill. How do we actually fix some of the damages that we've incurred from the BP oil spill? Economic being one, but environmental is the primary one. At the end of the day, they poisoned us. We've recovered economically to a certain degree. I'd like to think almost totally, but at the end of the day, how do we do that? How do we fix that environmental part? And they're sensitive to that. So when I went and pitched the idea to them, they were very receptive. So I believe that we have a commitment from the TDC and from the Restore Act. The next group that we're going to have to approach will be like the mayor mentioned, will be the Trust for Public Lands at the state level. But they're very conservation minded, and it's not. I'm not going to say it's an easy sell that you can say, help us buy a condo, we'll tear it down and restore the dune line, but it is in the frame of thought of conservation minded spending, which is what they do. So sure. That's a general update.
And thanks, Parker. And one point I wanted to make was, I'm surprised the sales tax passed, but it did, and we're going to have extra funds from that. And I would argue that, it would be an excellent way to spend the money. I haven't received. Beach access is the #1 complaint I get from locals, from tourists, other than traffic, but, the $10 million we'll receive in the sales tax would be a flash in the pan for our traffic problems, which aren't going away because it is what it is. So I would like to consider using our sales tax money for, to at least parlay it into matching grants and a commitment to the TDC or the county or the Trust for Public Lands. So we are serious about this. Here's our portion of the money. Will you help us out?
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. I think it's a wonderful idea. So I have a motion. Now, do we need to amend that to include the shores of Crystal Beach extensions east and west, or we'll just keep them on the list as we work through the process?
I think we'll keep them on the list. My opinion is let's not expend the funds quite yet to pull appraisals on them.
Okay. All right, so I have a motion. We have a second. Any further comment? Let's go ahead and take this to a vote. The vote's unanimous, so moved.
Reason for my pause, just so you guys know, is not because I'm opposed to obtaining beach property. Clearly, I want beach property as much as the next person. I just disagree with the list of priorities.
Again, I don't see them as purely priorities. They're not. We're shooting for all of them is that we can get on the list, and just because one might move to three might, and yours. Look, after we find out what the appraisals are, what these people are asking for, maybe pie in the sky, we might take number 4 and bump him to number 2. So nothing's set in stone, Ms. Ramswell.
Not only that, but when we get in the process, we might find out that they'll be like, well, is that all you want? And we'll say, well, no, and we can ask for more.
And I'm sure some of them are far more negotiable than we think.
And so the next thing I would like is to entertain, one of y'all entertain a motion to give our city manager the A-OK to get some appraisals on these properties.
I think that was part of.
That was in the motion? Okay, well then, thank you very much. I'm done, my portion then, because that's all I was looking for tonight.
Very good. And finally, for the city manager's portion, staff has a few announcements tonight for everyone. Number one, we are very happy to announce that our new community development director, Louis Zunguzzi, will be starting December 3rd. So I believe he will be here for our next council meeting. So we're very excited about that. Also, code compliance has been working very hard under our new leadership of Mr. Joey Forgione. And Joey and our interim city manager, Lance Johnson, will be providing a code compliance operations update at next meeting. So we're excited to see that. The city auditors will be here beginning next week. Just want to advise council that these auditors could be reaching out to you to ask some routine questions. We will also be hosting the city manager interviews at the workshop on Tuesday, November 27th at 9 a.m. Now, this is going to be held at City Hall over in the boardroom over at 4200, not here. So for our viewing audience, if you do plan on attending that, that will be over at the other building in the smaller boardroom. Thanksgiving, our offices will be closed for Thanksgiving this Thursday and Friday. On behalf of staff, I want to wish our council and residents a very happy Thanksgiving. We know we've been very, very blessed this year, and this is a wonderful community, and hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving. Our annual Christmas parade will be December 8th on Harbor Boulevard. That will be at 10 a.m. We will be posting a broadcast schedule for Cox Cable here in the next couple of weeks. Mayor and council, we will be meeting at 9 a.m. At the regular spot in front of Pepito, so y'all can decorate your Christmas carts for the parade.
We're not on horseback this year?
Horseback? Yeah. That's a great suggestion. I'll look into that.
Clydesdales, right?
Clydesdales? All right, I'm going to write that one.
What date was that for the parade?
That is December 8th.
Can the city provide us, like, with a stipend for some candy? Doug, actually, before you leave us, Doug,
I
could you
made
please
sure
make that
that you're going to have more candy than you can throw this parade.
You lied.
I promise.
You
No,
have no
I did.
idea
You
how
can
much
ask
I
Lisa.
throw. I learned from her.
No, we do. So we budgeted for that this year. You guys will be set.
Seriously.
I promise.
Is it
Don't
good
forget our
candy?
tree
And
lighting.
I asked for good candy.
Wait.
So
It's
like
not
not-
like
not
Dum
Tootsie
Dums
Rolls?
It will not be
and-
Tootsie Rolls. I
All
asked
right, good.
specifically
I
for
swear,
good
if
candy.
if it's peppermints, I'm coming for
Lisa, the tree light. Lisa, the tree lighting is
I'm
when?
throwing them at you.
All right. Don't forget that either. We'll be there. I'll be hosting as usual.
And also, the Destin History and Fishing Museum's annual Christmas Boat Parade will be on Sunday, December 9th, and the theme this year is Holiday on the Harbor. You can reach out to the History and Fishing Museum for more details. Our very own Wynn Livingston, our library director, will be a judge for that wonderful event. And last of all, just with very mixed feelings, I am announcing that today is our public information manager's last day. We will miss him a lot, Mr. Doug Rayner. He has been here almost 8 years. He's leaving due to a great career opportunity. It's very hard to see him go, but I also am very, very excited for him. And so please wish him well. I know he'll still be around. I know I'll be having to call him a lot in this interim, but we will miss him. He has been a great team member of Team Destin and a great asset to the city. We'll miss you. And that's all I have.
5-minute recess. All right, let's go ahead and call this back to order. Council members, have a seat. Council members, come back. We're going to start without Mr. Destin. Because he can listen on the microphone, or he can hear it through the speaker. So we are in item number 5, public hearings. Mr. Kyle.
Yep. We've got ordinance number 18-23-LC, an ordinance of the City of Destin, Florida, amending the official zoning map as referenced in the Land Development Code, section 7.12.01A2. Zoning maps to include a change in the zoning designation of an 11.543 acre area of land located on U.S. Highway 98, Destin, Florida, from commercial general CG to town center mixed use TCMU, providing for authority, providing for findings of fact, providing for jurisdiction, providing for zoning map amendment, providing for incorporation into the Land Development Code, providing for conflicting provisions, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This is going to be a quasi-judicial public hearing. So at first, if I get the applicant and any members of the public who want to be sworn in to present evidence, Ray, could you swear them in, please? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Kopp now.
Thank you. There is not anyone here from staff that's going to testify tonight, so we are going to go ahead and turn it over to the applicant to make their presentation to the council.
Yes.
Gentlemen.
Are we on here? Hi, Chip Dillard with Core Property Capital, a developer based out of Atlanta. Thank you guys for hearing us tonight. I'm going to let David Stanecki introduce the, I guess, a little bit more of the technical details first, and then I'll expand into the project as the developer with a little bit more of what we intend.
Yeah, David Stanecki. I'm a civil engineer based out of Atlanta. Chip and I have worked together for about the last 10 years on a variety of deals around the nation, properties that they have. What we're looking for down here is this 11.5 acres. Right now it's zone CG. Based on our conversations with staff, this 11.5 acres is part of the comprehensive plans designation to change everything. The future land use map shows this as part of the TCMU area. The TCMU, I believe, is intended to guide this central corridor of Destin towards interconnectivity, better pedestrian access, and away from what CG currently allows, which is a very broad reach of all uses. After reviewing and working with staff, comprehensive plan, our intent is to move to, we went ahead and applied for the rezone to TCMU to comply with the comprehensive plan. Our goal is to create a use and a development that would put multifamily off the highway in the back section of the property, and to use the section of the property that is highway fronting to be reserved for some commercial use. We don't have a specific tenant in mind for that front half of the property, whether that be retail, restaurant, other uses that are permitted in TCMU, but that is the general land use intent that we're shooting for here. Again, based on discussions with staff, I think the direction that this rezoning allows the city is to have a bit more control on the uses that can be permitted on this property. CG allows for a pretty wide use. Some of the uses that you don't want right into the central corridor of Destin. And then one of the major priorities why we're shooting for this is the current CG doesn't permit full-time, year-round multifamily residences. It only permits seasonal multifamily residences. So we could still build apartments today, but what we're hoping for is to build apartments tomorrow that can be full year-round apartments.
And just to expand on that a little bit specifically about the project, I think, David, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're currently about, I think it's 206 units is what we have had on our plan, which is roughly 20 to 22 units per acre, somewhere around 950 average square feet.
TCMU code allows for 26 units per
That's
acre.
right.
We're currently underneath that. The concept plan is still concept, but we're working on that right now.
Predominantly three-story height buildings. I believe there was one four-story building in the project, and fairly high price point. Average $1,600-ish a month in rent. We felt as a developer there was a lack of really Class A multifamily supply for permanent residents in the area, and really believe that this is an opportunity to fill that gap.
Is this concept similar to a lifestyle center? Is that why you're reserving the Highway 98 frontage to build into that, or is this just luxury apartments?
Predominantly luxury apartments. What you're left with is a small, I can't remember how much frontage we have on 98, but it's minimal.
It's like 150 or so. It allows you, and I don't know the number right off, but it allows you, kind of pigeonholes you right into the uses that can land. It limits you on the opportunity to use that for multifamily use. It's a bit too skinny to actually bring the multifamily all the way to front, but a bit too.
Yeah, that's right.
Mr. Morgan?
Thank you, Mayor. So you're at 22 units per acre now. The change in zoning would give you 26 units per acre.
No, I think the current zoning in CG, I believe, is 40 units, but it's all short term. You got to be under, I think it's 6 months or so. So it's just that we can't.
Kim, is that right? CG's 40 units per acre? So they would actually be seeing a decrease units per acre if they switch to TCMU.
Full year residents.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I was under the assumption that the zoning change would increase your units per acre, but it's good that it's
No,
not.
it's really the permanent resident 12-month rental is the primary.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. When rezoning something, I would like to see, that the application put in, or that whole process started, because I don't want to rezone something and then somebody have a change of heart on what they really want to build in there. So I really like to have all the information, and with that said, according to some of our LPA members, that information was not given to them as well, or may have been dropped in their lap the last second right before the meeting started. So they didn't get a chance to look at all of it as well. Because when it came to my attention that they wanted to rezone that parcel, I was like, well, why do they want to rezone it? What are they putting there? And nobody had any idea. So me, I'd really like to see some plans and what's going there, and not just rezone it and then.
So we have a concept plan now. It is not a final plan. What we're doing this morning, we met with DOT. We were on the phone with some of Destin's representatives from a traffic engineering standpoint. Tomorrow we've got a meeting with staff, again, similarly, to kind of vet out this concept plan and get us to a place where we feel like we're ready to present it to the public.
And the reason we did, I don't know if you mentioned that we met with DOT and are continuing as we are, as part of this, dedicating almost 20% of the site for a future right-of-way to go through the site along the northern boundary.
To be a road cut to 98.
The intention is for it to be the long-term connection to Matty B.
The city's comprehensive plan that you guys adopted shows for cross-access connections from Airport Road down to 98 to alleviate some of the 98 traffic to go all the way to Airport Road, then wrap back around. So there's a slated design for the Mattie B. Kelly extension that comes through our 80 most westernly feet of our property. When you flush it all out, it's about 2 acres of our property that we would work with the city together to help achieve the comprehensive plan of the cross connection to Airport Road.
So you'd have to have 80 feet?
And
Put that road in there?
The city's plan for the Mattie B extension asks 80 feet of the site's property.
And then that would be not all road, I believe. I think, I don't know if sidewalks on both sides.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only 2 to 3 lanes. If you may know more.
Based on our discussion with staff, it would be a 2-lane road, sidewalks, there'd be green space, stormwater management in this 80-foot right-of-way.
So that'd leave you, what, roughly 50 feet, something like that, to actually build something on?
No, the 150 or so was, if you're talking about the frontage width,
Right.
Excluded the 80 already. Yeah,
That did exclude it.
Yeah, we're incorporating
Okay.
the city's plans for a cross connection into our concept plan right now.
I got you. So you would have the 150 feet to actually build retail?
That's right, yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Can I just clarify what Councilmember Morgan asked me a second ago? The maximum density in CG for short-term multifamily residential is up to 16.9 units per acre, and it is a little bit higher in TCMU. It's 24 units per acre.
I don't know where we saw 40.
Yeah, we may be looking at the previous land development.
I'm looking at the newly adopted comp plan.
There it is.
We were looking at the old one.
My apologies.
No problem.
Mr. Marler.
Where did you come up with the 1,600 a month for the?
That's what the market is for some of the newer.
Now, what would that include? Power, water, all the utilities, everything, or?
There would be small ads for some utilities on top of that.
Okay, because I'm looking at what we really need in this town is affordable workforce housing, and I just didn't 16 something per month for all of that. If it includes utilities and everything, that would be comparable. But I mean, when the average mortgage is about $1,100, $1,200 a month, it just doesn't. That just doesn't jive with me on that. That's why I asked. All right.
I don't think anybody's going to use Highway 98 frontage for workforce housing in today's market.
But if they do the backside on Medicare.
Ms. Ramswell.
Thank you. So just a couple questions. I noticed that one of the allowable uses that you actually requested was a restaurant use. Can you explain why you put that in there?
I mean, that is because we're left with roughly 1 acre, and it's currently CG, and so it was really staying consistent with what we thought what we thought that last acre might be. We don't really have any.
It actually is consistent with the town center as well.
Actually, is that an allowable use for town center?
Yes. In fact, it's encouraged. That's why we didn't approve.
It's just not in
That's why
commercial
we didn't
general.
approve the Orr property for a car lot, because in the town center deal, it's restaurants, shops, things to encourage pedestrian style business.
So I know you said that you had a concept plan. What parts of the concept plan are actually definites that you know you would be doing?
I mean,
None?
none.
So
none
it could
until we
change
do it.
completely?
That's exactly right, and that's why we have not tried to hold it back. What we've been trying to do is try to understand, Chip's been doing market rate studies, I've been doing site planning studies. What can we place on the property from a density standpoint? What potentials does the property have? Let's have these conversations with DOT and the city traffic staff about the extension and what opportunities could that affect market rates of how this property could be developed. So
you're exploring ideas with a
Well, I mean,
basic framework.
it would be our intent to build what is on our and we build apartments and some retail. So if
So if the question is, are you gonna tomorrow come in with a plan with 3 hotels? No.
No.
We'd come in with 9 acres of multifamily and 1.5, because that's just slated for what 98 would be of a restaurant, retail, something that would be a good highway commercial use. That is definite.
So you could use it as it is currently zoned if it was a hotel as opposed to apartments?
Sure, we could build a couple hotels.
And that's something you've considered?
No, because it's just not what we do. I'm sure the
I
property
thought that's what you
owner-
just said. Didn't you just?
I'm saying that the current, we're not going to come in with a presentation to provide 3 hotels. That's not what we do. Our plan will always be apartments in the back and a retail, restaurant, commercial fronted use on the front.
I'm sure that the owner of the property has considered that in the past and would consider that if, we went away.
Right. So I notice on here that you list the fiscal impact and you talk about the construction of the Mattie Kelly Boulevard extension that you already mentioned briefly. Is that a definite or is that not a definite? It's just something that could happen depending on what you build?
We would have to build our portion of the road. So
From 98 or from Mattie Kelly?
From 98 to within the property boundary on our property.
But not necessarily all the way through?
We can't control what's not on our.
And to piggyback off of Ms. Ramswell's point, how do we intend to get from your property across the Gulf Power easement to Mattie Kelly?
What the current concept, what your current concept shows is Mattie Kelly crossing the Gulf Power easement. It curves through the northeast corner of the Big Kahuna property and curves back onto the 80 westernmost feet of our property.
And do we have those do we have that dedicated right-of-way from, in hand right now? Does legal counsel know from the Big Kahuna's property owners?
Not yet.
No. Based on our conversations today, you do not.
Right. I think we've also got a big issue with the Gulf Power easement. I know that they have a staunchly no vehicular use under their transmission lines, if I remember correctly.
I'm not going to be the right person to answer.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. I'm just spitballing all the different things here, because there's a lot of moving parts to that part, to that infrastructure.
And if I can address a lot of moving parts, what we've kind of presented, the discussion we had today with DOT as well as Destin Traffic was we would today, again, we're going to kind of plan a little bit tomorrow in a meeting, but do as much as we can on our property to manage our property and provide as much of the extension that we can today. And then when, if right-of-way, funding, et cetera, all comes in and Destin's ready to finish the connection. But we'll be able to help on the property we control.
But there's nothing in the code or anything that says you have to give that right away, that 80 foot up, or is there?
We don't have.
I think it's strongly encouraged.
Yeah, we don't have clarity on that yet.
I'm just bringing that point up. So it was recommended to you in the process up to this point that you donate that 80 foot to facilitate you getting rezoned, because it makes, you're giving up, you're making an investment in the community to be able to build your project, and that investment would be that 80 foot right away, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
And is that on the recommendation of staff, or is that a different entity?
Staff feels that it's required by the comp plan, strongly encouraged by the comp plan for sure.
There you go. So our staff's telling these guys, I mean, we're questioning what the 80 foot's for, and they're being told to provide it. So I just kind of wanted to clarify that portion of the discussion. You didn't come to them saying, hey, by the way.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
All right.
And that's roughly about 2 acres of the property.
Have you been able to consult with some folks about, trying to get all this, your application, everything together down here?
Yeah, we've been working with staff on putting together the application.
Okay.
Got a couple more people. Mr. Dixon.
I think we might be a little early with this, and the reason I think that we might be a little early with this is that you haven't come up with a concept of what you're going to do on the front of the property yet, and we may be changing the comp plan to allow for whatever difference you're going to make on the highway there. I really don't have a problem with what you're bringing forward tonight, but there is still a lot of unknowns about the whole project, and for us to change the zoning on something until we know exactly what the whole project entails, I think is a little bit premature. I'll certainly listen to the rest of the council members and get their opinion on this, but I do think that this is a little bit sudden, and I'm not saying I'm against this, but what I am saying is that without a full knowingly what you're going to do with the front and the back of it, it's kind of hard, I think, for us to make a determination as to whether or not this would be good for the city or whether or not this would be not so good for the city. But, you know, I do know what you're seeking tonight. You're seeking tonight to make those apartments that are, or whatever townhomes that you want to build, not have them to be short-term rental, but to be basically long-term rental apartments. And I get it, but there's still some unknowns in this whole thing. So,
And this is a quasi-judicial proceeding, and they're sworn under. So I have a question before we had two more people that want to talk of our attorneys. Is this proceeding, is this procedural? Is this the normal step to have a first reading of this ordinance at this juncture, and then it goes to the land development folks?
It has been to the LPA already, so this is our regular procedure. First to LPA. LPA voted 4-1 to approve it, with one person voting to deny, and then this is first reading, and then you would have second reading the next meeting.
Okay, so it's already been before the planning advisory panel, and they voted to support the change of zoning, and so this is not premature. This is part of the process.
this is for the whole project now, because they're saying that they don't know what they're going to do with
No.
the front part of this project.
This is just for the rezoning. If they get the rezoning, they are not obligated to put any particular project there. Anything that's allowed in the zoning district would be permissible.
Yeah, just to clarify, there is no development application at this time, is there?
There is not, and part of the reason for that is we don't want to go too far down a path and spend a whole lot of money if it's not going to get rezoned. So there is a,
Yeah, you can't come here with a concept and a plan, and then that's relying on rezoning before it even works until you find out whether you can get this rezoned or not. So your argument here tonight is you have an idea what you want to do with the property, but it must be rezoned to town center mixed use to proceed forward.
And I would say, we build apartments. 80 to 90% of this property is for that use. We do not know what happens with the last front 1 acre, other than it will be a use that would be consistent with CG or TCMU. And so, once that road is built, the property is built, then somebody, may call and say, I want to build a coffee shop here. And then that's how that will work. And that may take a year or so.
Or a place that sells beach towels and umbrellas and stuff like that, I guess, maybe. Possibly,
it's
right?
possible.
Yeah.
That's already allowed in CG.
And that is both of which are allowed currently.
Yeah, both in CG and TC.
I'm just curious about the apartments, considering you're almost slapped next to an amusement park. How that's going to work?
Is there a concern in that discussion?
Well, I think, the concern's going to be, I don't wonder how you're going to sell the apartments with the noise problem.
That's for
I know,
business,
but I
that's
mean,
for the
I'm
business
just,
to figure out.
that's going to be an interesting selling point for you people.
We won't have jobs if that happens, if there's an issue.
Okay.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sorry, Mr. Destin, you're next, Mr. Braden.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot of heartburn with what you're proposing, but without any sort of concrete guarantees that what you propose will actually be what is built, should we rezone you. You guys seem like fine guys, honest, that's not my issue. But there's little guarantees in the legal world that, if you guys decide to sell to somebody else, somebody steps in your shoes and just throws out your plan and switches out without an application in, it gives me a little bit of heartburn just to unilaterally just change it. And it's probably why I'm not going to be able to support it for this evening.
So, and just to kind of reiterate, I don't think maybe I've misrepresented the fact that we have a concept and we don't know what we're doing. We are building apartments in the back half. I think the still under concept is, does the apartment go on the property line side, or do we flip it with the parking? And how is the stormwater management going to work out, because we're doing soil reports? And how does the environmental concerns look with some of the other, the soil suitabilities? Do we have the water and sewer capacities, and what do those, financial burdens of getting capacity look like with Destin Utilities? Where is the city at with the Mattie B. Kelly extension, and what is our obligation going to be for that financially? So those are the concept portions that we're discussing. We build apartments and we build retail and restaurants, and so both of these are right in our wheelhouse. We don't have a lease signed for the 1.13 acres that we have up front, but if we did, we'd build that too. So I just wanted to flesh that out.
And generally speaking, I don't, I think we'd have to see a long list of what is permitted in CG and what is permitted in TCMU. I would probably imagine that CG has every bit of TCMU and probably some more. So, I think the primary change is really going to the long-term, permanent resident, and that's the change. That's the only reason we're here.
I got two more people that want to talk. So I think what the concern I'm hearing is that you guys will build something that's in the area that isn't in compliance and or with the LDC or the comp plan, and actually what they're trying to do is get a change of the designation to town center mixed use, and whatever is required in that portion of the comp plan or LDC for that for our town center, whatever they build is going to have to fall within those rules and regulations, correct, Kim?
Correct. They still would have to go through the development process once they submit an application.
That's correct. So basically what they're telling us is they don't want to build short-term rentals. They want to build long-term luxury apartments, which are consistent with the town center community ideas, including a restaurant or a shop or whatever in the front, which is still consistent with our town center plan, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so that's where we're at. I don't get a feeling like they're coming in here trying to pull the wool over the eyes of this council. No, I didn't say you said that. I'm just. Well, you just have to be looking back because everybody else is staring out there and they're rolling their eyes. Tuffy, you're the only guy listening to me. But that's I just want to bring some clarification. Now, if you're suspicious and you don't trust these guys, and or you don't trust our staff to make sure they do it the right way, then maybe don't support it. But it sounds like they've sworn in a judicial proceeding. They're telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And we're kind of asking questions like, well, what are they really going to do? So I'm just trying to bring a little levity to the discussion. I have two more people that want to discuss, and then I guess we'll just take this. I guess we'll take it to a vote, right?
Can I ask a question before we get going, Mayor? If this tonight gets voted up, down, whatever, if it's voted down, is this over? Can we continue this if we need to? Is this something
they'll probably pack their bags and go some
some
other city that's going to work with them.
But my idea is that I'd like to see more information on exactly what and where and how and that kind of stuff. So, I'm along with Parker tonight.
Yeah, I'm going to make a motion to table.
And
the reason I'm going to do a motion
that
to
would be
table,
my opinion on it, and let's get some more information on it.
Well, I'm going to get a motion on the floor, Mayor. because we got to get some direction, otherwise we're going to talk about this all night. I'm making a motion to
I'm gonna
table.
let you talk, Chad. That's your buddy. Go ahead. I'm just messing with you.
Motion to table, and gentlemen, it's not anything personal. I just want to see something a little more concrete with regards to the legal obligations. What we know that it would be built, you've applied for it. I've put it as table. I'm not making a motion to reject it. So it's still out there. It could be brought back up, but I need a little bit more than that.
We have a motion.
Mayor, could you open up for public comment too, please?
Second, the motion.
Should we open up for public comment before we do the motion then?
You can do it now.
Okay. If
I'll
does that please you?
I'll withdraw my motion just so we can open up for public comment procedurally. Is that correct?
You can open up for public comment after the motion has been made. That's fine.
Fair enough. I'll leave it on the floor.
Okay,
Still
we have a
second.
motion. We have a second. Any, Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Mayor. I do appreciate your, how you interpret what they are trying to tell us, or your opinion on what they're trying to sell us tonight, but I'm going to go base my decision off what I actually heard these two gentlemen talk about tonight. Just for your own knowledge, I would support what you've brought us here tonight, but this community has been burnt too many times on a bait and switch, that this is what we're going to do, approve it, and then we got approval. Well, we had to change your heart, we're going to do something else, but tough luck, you've already approved it. So that's where my heartburn is at. If I had something that you brought to me and said, this is what this is what I want, this is what I want you to approve, but we needed the zoning to be changed, I'd be all for it. I know what I'm getting. So for that reason, for tonight, I wouldn't be able to support it based on those reasons. We've had people come in and we want to build a condo, 5-story, but they want to stick that tier 3, which limits them to 160 feet back in there. Oh, gentlemen, I can't approve. I love the condo, I'll approve that, but you got to take this whole tier 3 thing out of it. Well, they wouldn't do it. And because they could, as soon as I approved it, and then they could, or this council approved it, then they could have a change of heart, say, well, I'm glad you like the 5-story condo, but you approved the tier 3, so we're going back to 160 feet. So that's why I'm gun shy on it. And if you guys can bring us back something and say, look, this is what we're building, I'll approve that.
All right, we got a motion to table, so let's just go ahead and vote.
Mayor, I'm going to speak.
We're allowed to vote and then have public comment.
No. You can make the motion
I'll
and then
make
have the
a
public comment.
substitute motion to pass this if that'll kill what this is, and I can actually speak. Can I speak?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Can we switch CG to allow for long-term rentals? Would this be easier?
If you amend the code, yes.
How long is that going to take?
It would require an LPA meeting and 2 council meetings.
Would that be acceptable for y'all if we just change CG?
It would be.
Is that preferable? Because it seems easier.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
Because here's the thing, if we switch from short-term rentals to CG, or long-term rentals are not allowed in CG, what's the harm if we allow them? I don't see any harm, and we accomplish what we're trying to do tonight without thinking that these guys might pull one over on us, which personally, I don't think, not only do I not think they are, which is irrelevant, I don't think they can, because I don't think town center mixed use is particularly a worse code for what they're trying to build. It's 7 units per acre more, but if we just switch CG, we're going to keep them to the 16.9 units per acre, which is a lower density.
Is there a way we could put restrictions on the TCMU with the ordinance? I mean,
Not tonight.
Not
tonight, so I think it would be just as easy if I directed staff to allow for CG to accomplish what they're trying to do without changing the zone.
Well, my concern is that the comp plan also talks about short-term uses in the CG. So it might
can't
take
you allow
longer than
both?
just what I said, because it's not just amending the LDC, it's amending the comp plan.
So
Well, I'll make a substitute motion that the council accept the proposed changes in the amended and restated park, nope, wrong motion, sorry. I'll make a substitute motion that the city council approve ordinance 18-23-LC, amending the official zoning map to change the zoning designation of the property on US Highway 98 from commercial general to town center mixed use on first reading, and direct staff to bring it back for second reading.
We have a substitute motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it, Mayor.
Now we need public comment.
And now we can have public comment. Gentlemen, take a break.
Thank you.
Would anyone here in the audience like to speak to this event?
Jason Klosterman, 1014 Airport Road, member of our LPA as well. Personally, I voted to pass this through. I don't have any heartburn over what the gentlemen themselves are saying. My heartburn is more over the process itself. We generally get our information for a meeting about a week ahead of time. And upon going through everything, really, all any of it said was that we're rezoning this to make it consistent with everything else around it. So of course, I'm looking at the map and everything else around it's not town center mixed use. And then, of course, I looked at the future land use map. So personally, I would think it would benefit everybody here, the LPA being the first step before y'all, if we can get this information. I mean, I basically showed up, then I got, a couple developers in front of us in this project that we're discussing. And I think I could have done a little better homework and possibly, steered some of this on through even better with more information had we had that, prior to me showing up to my meeting, instead of showing up to an LPA meeting and, oh, wait, we're not just doing it to change it so it's consistent with things around it. We're doing it because, well, there's a development coming. Personally, I think these gentlemen were very open, honest. We had a lot of questions for them, even down to, what's the percentage of this complex going to be as far as how many rooms. We asked them things like how many 1 bedrooms, how many 2 bedrooms, how many 3 bedrooms, things of that nature. And they were very forthcoming and answered a lot of questions. So I personally don't have any heartburn over what they want to do, but I think it would help the process if we had something more when they come to us before they get to y'all, so that maybe we can, make this a little more streamlined for you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Kim, would you like to say anything along those lines, what he just brought up as far as being a member? Because you're working with these groups, the developers, I
think when the new community development director starts on December 3rd, we'll have a lot of efficiency improvements to make.
But you see a need there.
Yes, it's been discussed for a while in the community development department to make these improvements. They've been short-staffed for a while, though.
I understand that, and I also understand the reluctance with this group here, because just the political atmosphere that we've been under. Mr. Destin brought up to me, like, every time if we approve projects, even though it might be the most wonderful approved, he's getting phone calls about the traffic it's going to cause. Of course, my answer to that is we can't just shut this city down and let it turn into a wasteland either. So we got to streamline the process, clarify the information or misinformation. So I'll look forward to that when we get a new community development director. So we have a substitute motion and a second. If you'll clear my thing for me so I can see it. Anyone else would like to comment on this second motion? If not, we're going to have, go ahead. I was going to turn back to public comment.
Is that okay then? Teresa Hebert, 716 Main Street. As just a resident of Destin, we have a lot of dead space. We have places over by Old Time Pottery that's dead. We have places up by Bill's that nobody will buy into. And you hear from developers, and I've heard from people from other cities, that Destin makes it very hard to want to bring a business in because it's just not a streamlined process. Just sitting here watching this tonight, everyone acted like these guys were criminals coming in to do something that was going to be bad for the city. I think it's nice to get rid of some of the dead, ugly 98, properties that are sitting there undeveloped. Bring something in so people can live here throughout the year instead of have to move in 6 months. Bring those people in that are going to spend their money and live in Destin and buy in Destin. And I think, if they've got their plans, just because they don't have a perfect picture of it tonight, we shouldn't just shut them down. Give them a chance to show us what they can do. And help our city start to develop and have more than just car washes and storage facilities, okay?
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you, Teresa.
I reject the fact that we treated these people like criminals tonight. I think we've treated them with respect. We're trying to help you here, but we're trying to make sure we do the right thing, and to basically say we've treated them like criminals is not fair. It's just not right.
Maybe that wasn't a good analogy.
And you know, to continue this so we can talk about it another day is, but anyway, I think we've treated you fairly.
Anyone else out in the audience? Seeing no further public comment, I'll go ahead and bring this thing to a vote.
This would be for the substitute motion, which is actually the original motion. Can you reread your motion or restate your motion, Councilman?
It's in your packet. It's to approve the zoning change.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second, we've had discussion. Let's go ahead and vote on this motion. It's 4-3, the nays have it, so this motion fails.
Mayor, before y'all vote on the original or the first motion, is this a indefinite tabling, or is this a date certain?
I put it indefinitely. I was going to wait on the, to see an application from the original applicants, and at which point if, I'll be one of the first ones to pull it off a tabling if we get something a little more concrete.
Okay. It's just for the record.
And just for the record too, I think they said they weren't going to spend all that money and all that without this designation first, so I get that part of it too. So we have a motion to table. We have a second. Let's vote.
Mayor, I'm not going to approve something. I don't know what I'm approving. I mean, everybody else gets to shout out and say what they want to say, so I'm just saying, I'm not approving something. I'm not approving. I'm not approving something. I don't know what I'm approving.
Four to three, nays have it. Or
what's the procedure for revoting?
this,
Rodney, you meant to vote yes.
this,
Rodney, you need to vote yes.
this was a vote to table and it failed.
So this effectively means that it's lying nowhere. They're done.
They're done.
No, this technically means it's still on the table and we're open for
We haven't moved
debate.
anywhere. We're exactly where we were when we started. Yeah,
The vote
Rodney,
to table
you're on the winning side, so you can bring it back up if you
I
want.
want
I
to bring
can't.
it. I want to bring it back up. I want
Well,
to vote
it's-
it, table it before we add more information.
Finish. Technically,
We
y'all
want to do a
denied the
revote.
motion.
Is that?
So somebody
And
from the
you
others.
can either move on with the meeting, Mayor, right now, because the actual suggested motion was denied, so their application has been denied at this point in time, then even to keep it alive through a tabling has been denied.
That's
So-
correct.
But we have a council member saying that their vote was not correct, so they need to revote.
You need to vote to reconsider the motion. And you can do that because we're at the meeting right now, and so you can do it, and it only requires a majority vote. It's not a motion to rescind, so you can go ahead and,
Yes, it was not our finest hour just then.
I'll move to reconsider.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none?
Restate the motion, just so everybody
Reconsider.
is...
To
Okay, we're
reconsider
just
the motion
voting-
to table.
Excellent.
You're voting
okay.
yes.
It's unanimous,
So
so
now we need I motion to table indefinitely. Right, Parker?
so you don't, you can vote to,
Guys,
Mayor?
this needs to be
Kyle,
clarified
can
because
we get
nobody knows what's
clarification
going
here what we're
on.
doing, please?
Jeff, I think they have to revote the last.
You can, but if you actually do a motion to reconsider the previous vote, it's just voting again on the same motion.
Thank you. Tell them, council, it's over. You got that, everyone? Listen. Our council just said it's over. We just voted to table.
Okay, not to belabor this, but because we've got to make sure protocol has been followed properly or everything's screwed up. I thought we just placed a vote to reconsider, which would then mean we had to vote again on Parker's motion that he made to table.
That's
It was a motion to
rescind.
reconsider the previous motion, which was a motion to table, because he was on the losing side under Robert's rules. He had to be the one who moved, Tuffy seconded it, and so we voted on a reconsider to table, which means it's tabled.
And not only that, but Judge Burns said it was over.
If you would have done a motion to rescind at like another meeting, you would have had to do the motion to rescind, the lengthier procedure that you're talking about. That would have been if it would have gone beyond this meeting.
You're right. Legal counsel says it's done, folks. And in a quasi-judicial setting, if he says it's done, it's done. All right, let's move on to 5. That was spectacular. Let's move on to 5E. Marine, who's going to headline this one, Miss Kim?
Mayor, I'll start us off because this is another.
Team, hold on.
Going back through what we've done.
If I may speak, in the past, I mean, I think in the resolution you will find probably that if you, if the motion is to reconsider and it passes, it nullifies the previous vote. That's all it does. That's my understanding. And then the original motion is back on the table. You have to vote again. We've done that several times in the past, and I don't know, we're doing something differently today, but I'm glad to say that.
I would be more than happy to make Ray feel good and make Preble feel good. So I'm going to make a motion to table.
It's not about making me feel good, it's just about making sure we follow the proper
I understand,
procedure.
but there's a question of whether or not the legal counsel and the clerk agree that this is the correct procedure. If we do this, then we will have everybody copacetic, and we can move on.
We have a
motion to table.
We have a motion.
Okay, so we need a
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, and there's not any further discussion, so let's vote.
We don't even have Tuffy out here, guys.
I know which way he's voting. Give me his remote,
What are we
please.
voting on now?
I'll vote yes for him.
I'm glad this is on video.
Under Robert's rules, you can vote without Tuffy in the room, and y'all did just vote unanimously to reconsider. So, I mean, and the mayor's vote will count one way or the other. So
Let's vote.
You could risk it. I mean,
It's not gonna.
He wants to move on.
I want to move on. I'll vote with you. Preble, whatever your vote is, that's what I'll vote. I'll wait till the last second. We can vote. He didn't go to the bathroom. He went to go eat a cookie, and the cookies are all gone.
Tuffy, you're voting yes.
It's unanimous, so moved.
Now,
Kyle.
All right. Since we had so much success with the last quasi-judicial hearing, let's try another one. We're on to 5E, which is the marine construction at the Captain Leonard Destin Park. This is another quasi-judicial public hearing. If the applicant, who's I believe sitting back there, could please stand to be sworn in, and if any member of the public would like to present evidence, if they could also stand to be sworn in. And Ray, could you please swear him in? Okay. I'm going to turn it over to, well, I was going to turn it over to Ms. Kopp, but she's not here right now, and I don't believe. Go ahead, Jeff. Go.
Since Lance is not here and Steve Schmidt, who handled most of this, is not here, we can still move forward with the hearing because the applicant's here and they can provide the necessary evidence to move forward. I believe you have the information in your packets. It's the permit to build the dock and the associated features with that dock. They've, I think the design plan, I talked to Mr. Braden earlier before the meeting. The actual full design was approved years ago, before I think a lot of y'all were even on the council, but it was when Mr. Braden and Ms. Ramswell's first terms, somewhere during that time. So a previous board has approved of the design plan, which they've attached to their dock permit, and so now they're here tonight, and the rules of procedure under the city's current rules require a quasi-judicial hearing on commercial dock or non-residential dock permits, and that's what we're here on tonight. And so the applicant will need to get up, and sir, you'll need to provide an overview of what you're asking for tonight, because the staff member who handled it is not here to provide the necessary testimony. So if you could get up and just provide a good overview of what you're asking for and then answer their questions, that'll meet the necessary burden for tonight.
Bobby Stormer, and I'm with Reliant South Construction Group. We're the general contractors that are performing the project. And the pier is not for boats. It's more of like a fishing or observation pier. And then there's a small kayak launch that will be separate from the pier. And those are the two docks that are being built.
Mr. Braden.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to make the recommended motion. I move that the City Council approve the application for marine construction at Captain Leonard Destin Park located at 101 Calhoun Avenue with the addition of a security light at the terminal end of the pier. Pier Article 1.05.01.u City of Destin Land Development Code.
I have a motion.
Second.
And I have a second. Anyone have any questions?
The light going to be big enough to attract trout and redfish. That's what I want to know at the end.
Metal halide light is what we need. No further questions?
We do need public comment.
All right. You can go ahead and sit down, I guess. Does anybody have any public comment concerning this? Seeing none, let's take a vote. Vote is unanimous, so moved. All right, at least he's leaving with a smile on his face. All right, number 6, consent agenda. Webb, you want?
What you have before you, Council, is a request for the use of the city right-of-way for the Roundabout Relay on Saturday, December 29th.
Motion to approve.
Second.
I got a motion, I got a second. Any discussion? Seeing none? Vote unanimous, so moved. All right, moving on, right on down the list. Number 7, Mr. Braden.
I'm good tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Braden. Ms. Ramswell.
I think I'm good tonight, too.
Thank you, Ms. Ramswell. Mr. Dixon.
I want to congratulate Doug Rayner on a very good job here. Thank you so much for everything you've done for us. We're going to miss you, and happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. Mr. Overdeer.
Nothing tonight, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Marlar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two little items. Well, the first item is, which is on the agenda, is the nomination of Bill McKessick to the City Destin Harbor and Waterways Board.
Okay, we have.
Form of a motion.
We do that in the form of a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? Whenever you volunteer for somebody, you're just going to be tagged. Let's go ahead and vote. Ayes have it, so moved.
And the only other thing I have, Mayor, is I had the opportunity to, on Friday, to be at the ribbon cutting for the new courthouse in the wonderful city of Crestview. It's a beautiful facility. I'll be looking forward to when they get it all together. And Mr. Burns was also there, and I think he thinks he said it's better than the one in Santa Rosa County. So I think we're all right there. And it was
Exactly what I said.
Yeah, and it was a very good ceremony. We had a lot of retired judges, a retired sheriff there also, and a lot of good things will come out of that courthouse, I think, and it's moved us into the 21st century up there. So it's going to be wonderful, and that's all I have.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Destin.
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Mr. Morgan.
Nothing, thank you.
Only thing I have to say is, Ms. Ramswell, thank you for that presentation with your board. It's pretty exciting. Seeing how I have a grandson that's 12 and one that's 11, I'm rooting for you. Support you 100%. They both presently go to sim school, so they're having to drive and get on the bus at 6:30 in the morning and stuff like that. So it'd be nice when they do become high schoolers if they could just stay on this side of the bridge. Other than that, Ms. Kopp.
I have a couple of quick items. The first thing is a status update on the short-term rental ordinance, and that's just basically to let you all know the time frame. So right now, my office is about to get a draft of the ordinance over to staff by the end of this short week. And then once staff and Joey at Code Enforcement puts in their comments to the ordinance, it will come to you on December 3rd as just a review, and then it will be required to go to LPA and 2 regular meetings before you, yes.
And at that point, will the council have an opportunity to wordsmith it, not only just based on your recommendations, but maybe some of the things we've talked about in our workshops?
Yes. Yes, that's why we're going to come back to you before LPA, so that you can put your input in. I've listened to the workshop, and so I know what was said there, but you can see what we come up with and weigh in again. Number 2 on here, we've already addressed tonight, so I'm just going to go on to number 3. I'm requesting directive from the council on whether we can clarify the code to address private event houses and wedding venue type establishments in residential areas. So if the council would be okay with me making some revisions and clarifications to the code, I'd rather address it more directly than what's currently there.
I think through the workshops, we were pretty clear that no commercial operations in residential communities, correct, everyone? So I'm sure that's what you understood as well.
What I'm thinking is that one of the more easier to enforce ways to do it would be to make it a prima facie evidence that a violation is existing if someone is advertising. And with that, it would be a lot easier to move forward if you all think that's a good idea.
Do your attorney magic and make it as enforceable and hard to find that little gray area that spends hours in court. So
Will do.
You got our support on that. And is that all, Kim?
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you too. Kyle?
Nothing for us.
Actually, Mayor, one thing I talked to actually with Ms. Kopp and Mr. Destin about actually before the meeting today at various different times, it looks like there is a need to actually update, is it the flume map or is it the current land use map to match it up with the flume? It was one of the maps is not in line. That actually kind of was one issue that was faced tonight at the hearing that y'all had that lasted about an hour. The map is not matching up, and that's something that the city on its own can kind of match the current land uses up with the flume.
Something that have to take place when we get our community director, or is that something, Kim, you guys could try to put together for us?
Either way, I mean, I think you're talking about making the zoning map match up with the comp plan map, so.
Yeah, whoever has to do that, I would think staff could probably accomplish that and then you can just sign off on it once you take a look at it, or,
It's something that really hasn't, the entire time I've been the city attorney, it's never actually been lined up with each other. So maybe if y'all set like a date certain with the city attorneys and staff to get a draft together, deadlines are always good sometimes, I think.
Would January 1st be enough time?
I think so, yes.
All right. Do you need that in the form of a motion, or is just basically consensus enough?
I'm good with consensus.
Motions are good sometimes.
Sometimes motions are
Overruled.
good.
yeah, well, normally I
judge.
don't like to
Sometimes.
legislate in item 7, but this is a special case because of the holidays. We're already short, so go ahead, Mr. Destin.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make the motion that we instruct the attorneys to work with staff to bring back a correct plan and map that matches up the zoning with the flume, and I'd like it to be before council before January 1st.
I got a motion.
Wait, one clarification on that motion. I think you might only have one meeting in December.
Fair enough. I'll bump it to...
Maybe first meeting in January?
By the first meeting in January.
Okay, we got a motion? I got a second. Let's vote. And with that unanimous vote, this meeting is adjourned.